Welcome, everybody, to Did That Age Well at Dude IDK Studios. I'm Molly Smith, your host, and today I am so excited to welcome back my friend Al Jackson. Welcome back to the pod.
I'm excited to be here on two levels.
All right, let's talk about it.
You know, we've been talking before we started the pod about I am literally in the middle of moving.
Yeah.
And I was in a pinch to get out of the house that I was in and into my girlfriend's condo. And in one of those pinches where you were just going through what's in the house, like, could I live without that?
Yeah.
Do I need my toothbrush?
Do I really need to bring that?
Shoes.
Yeah.
Are they oppressive? I don't know if I need all of them.
Maybe I'll be the no shoes guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in a pinch, and this sounds like such a plug, but it's really personal to me. I was talking to Nick, who runs the studio yesterday. I was doing another podcast, and he was like, well, these guys at Spider Moving sponsor my studio. I was like, how do I get out of my house? I was like, hey, Nick, are those guys still available? They were. Spider Moving came through for me. I cannot. This is not a commercial. This is happening currently as I'm talking. They're at my condo.
Yeah.
Shout out to Spider Moving. You didn't know, but there was a 47-year-old black man that had one option left. You know, like the life is you bumper stickers. Life is full of options.
Yeah.
Life is full of option.
Option.
It was
Life
that,
was full of option.
or just walk away from my stuff. And look, Molly, if we're going to keep it 100,
let's do it.
I didn't get a chance to get over there and box up the last bit of it. So not only did they pick my stuff up, they got it individually. It'd be like if you worked for Uber Eats and I was like, can you go pick up some jelly beans at CVS for me? And you were like, sure, it's my job. And I was like, oh, one thing, they're all separate. And they're scattered around the store.
Everywhere.
So embarrassing.
Oh,
and they didn't just seeing these two guys
that's amazing.
Moving like picture frames individually in my mom. I was like,
wow,
I love y'all. I will, every time I get a chance, I will shout y'all out. You guys, Spider Moving, if you need real help. Or if you are a planner.
Yeah,
and
if
just
you could even plan ahead.
something like a nutcase, do that as well. So shout out to Spider Moving. I had to get that out. That's been like, I don't know how they did it, but they came through for me. So
that's amazing.
In the middle of all this nonsense, though, the one, to go to sleep. This might sound morbid. On YouTube, I watch those tornado videos. I don't want to talk about it.
Just, like as white noise, or just to be like, I'm so small, the world's so big.
It's the guy's voice. He'll just be like, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1988. And F5 is barreling towards the town of Hayesville. They don't know. God. And so it's horrible.
Yeah,
but I know a lot more about tornadoes than I should.
It takes what it takes.
Yes. And there is a moment in a tornado where when you're in the true eye of it, it's very peaceful. And when I was in the eye of this tornado of moving, there was some peace. And that peace was watching this movie.
So glad. That is beautiful.
Remember the Titans was the only thing where I was like, it's great to have appointment television where you got to watch it like a movie that makes you happy. So.
Yes, when you have to sit down and do your homework of watching a heartwarming American classic.
Yes.
Based on a true story.
I think based on maybe doing a lot of work there, but I mean, it does seem like, Coach Boone was a real guy.
He was a real guy.
Coach for 5 years, after the movie was made. So I have thoughts. So what are yours? Let's kick it off.
All right, well, let's kick it off. I felt like this movie was just so fun to rewatch. I love Remember the Titans because it's the perfect sports formula movie where it's like, are they going to win? Are they not going to win? Are they going to solve racism? Are they not? I just felt like it was perfectly wrapped up in a bow, and sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need a movie that doesn't leave us with any questions. No lingering thoughts of like, oh, well, what's going to happen now? I didn't need to really worry about that. I mean, they gave us at the end, like, the where are they now?
Which everybody loves. Shut up. Everybody loves that. You want to know, like, what that happens when they're 40. Oh, he has 3 kids now.
Yeah, I want to know that. I want to know that. But unfortunately, I feel like the facade was a little bit broken when I looked into kind of more of the true story.
That's why you don't do that.
That's why you don't do that.
It's called living the lie. Okay?
Why did I start this podcast just to do this kind of shit to myself and my friends?
Shattering everything.
Yeah, so I went ahead and kind of shattered everything. It's not as though, okay, so Howard Boone, it's not as though he wasn't a Black man who led this football team to victory and helped bring this community together along racial lines. But he was unfortunately fired like 5 years later for abuse of players. What did I say exactly? It was like he oh yeah, there was this actually Obama, when he was campaigning in February of 2008, went to TC Williams High School and like did a whole he like did a whole thing with Howard Boone and was like, woohoo. So good
How
for
long
him.
after the Obama visit did things fall apart?
See, that's a good question. The thing is, Boone was fired from his coaching position in 1979 after allegations of player abuse and related complaints by 3 assistant coaches. So, you know what?
I could see that just from the movie.
From the movie, it doesn't seem like he was sweet to his players. I did really like when he confronted the white coach and was like, you coddle the Black players and not the white ones.
Right.
I see that.
Right.
But there were a couple of players who spoke to the press basically being like, well, I can say that he treated white and Black students equally bad.
See, that's equality. You
So
got
there
it.
you go.
That you get. Sometimes you get what you ask for.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was the 70s, you know.
There
People,
were-
you could call your football players so many things I can't say on the mic right now.
Right.
You know?
But I mean, and he did. We were watching, just to skip ahead a little bit, but
Yeah.
there's a moment when they're training in the summertime, doing
Mm-hmm.
2-a-days, and he goes, "You need water." He goes, "Water is a bad word around here. Water is weakness." I'm like, we've had a number of players collapse because of that theory.
Yeah.
Turns out we need water because our body is 70%.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things that I think the ideology of my way or the highway, I'm very tough on people. I think that works a lot.
Yeah.
I think that it's almost like if you were to say, I'm going to tar and gravel this road myself.
Yeah.
Could you do it? Probably. But is there probably a better way to do it? Working with people, learning about it first. It's like the whole tough guy mentality. It's great for bumper stickers and great
Right.
for movies because it's such a typecast. You know who the hard ass is.
Yeah.
But that strategy doesn't work, and that strategy gets you fired in 5 years.
Unfortunately, yes. But it still doesn't necessarily damage your reputation because then 20 years later, they're going to make a movie about you. And then 8 years after that, the soon-to-be president of the United States is going to come visit the school where you worked and say, you're a hero.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be.
So
How many people watch that movie and watch him be applauded and be like, that guy called me a shithead in front of my mom? Like, there have to be a lot of people that were like, that guy was
Yeah.
really rude to me.
Totally.
But I mean, it's kind of like, I think, and it takes an extreme personality to get a movie made about them.
Yeah.
And, he was definitely that. I think what initially caught my attention, because I kind of went through this movie chronologically, is like there's a Coach Yost. He's the initial white coach that is supplanted by the Black coach, kind of like unceremoniously. They're just like, he was like, the white coach was like, well, I'll just quit. And then he was like, well, I'll stay on as assistant coach so all the white players don't quit.
Right.
And I was thinking, if he doesn't make the move to become an assistant coach and he leaves and the white players leave and there's an all Black team, that would explain. I remember like when I played high school basketball, we would go play away games and we would always look at like the team through the years.
Yeah.
And then there was just one year where the team was all Black. Immediately in the player's name,
Yeah.
it was like Rob Burkowski, Johnny Franklin, Mike Painter, and then the next thing, Jerome Wallace. and it just like 1 year.
Yeah.
It was just, and it like, I was like, that would have explained every high school that you, like,
explains everything. Yeah.
My co-host from Daily Blast Live and my co-host on Daytime Talk After Dark, Tory Shulman, her dad went to East Side High in Jersey, which is the high school that Lean on Me was made, the all black high school, but he was there when it was all white.
Oh my God.
So it's so interesting. He was best friends with Bruce Valanche.
No way.
Who came on DBL and was super awesome and remembered her. They were really close.
That's so cool.
Isn't that weird? And it's like Bruce Valanche went to East Side High.
Oh my God.
Isn't that life is so
life is crazy.
The overlap. So Coach Yost, he decides to stay on, but they have this little heartwarming moment because they have to introduce his daughter,
right?
Who plays a major, some would say wildly annoying role in the movie. She was a little much as you get a little older.
Yeah.
She was a little much.
Yeah.
But
sometimes kids like don't need to do that.
It was she had a lot of lines and they almost seemed kind of like wild lines, like they did them after the movie was done. It's like, come on, guys. You can do better. It's like, is she what? And there's just a line in that really, I feel like hit me, and I don't know if it even resonated with you. They were like, because it's rare to see a dad that gets full custody.
Right.
And it's like they were like, he's separated from his wife because he just couldn't put down high school football. And then they just move on. I'm like,
they moved on so quickly. They said, she's like, Dad worked too hard, and so Mom left. What?
She never seen again.
Never seen again. Never mentioned again.
Never mentioned.
Why did they have to? Was that like an element of his real life that they were like, oh, well, I guess he was a single dad, so we shouldn't introduce this new character if, his wife wasn't in the picture? Or were they just like, it's simpler if we just get rid of...
I think you forget this movie is what, the 2000?
Yeah.
And so even back then, 25 years ago, a lot of things that were not a heteronormative male-female relationship had to be explained. Like famously, like the Golden Girls were, they were allowed to kind of get away with that because 4 women in a house with no man, because they were older and the sexual element was kind of removed except for Blanche.
Of course.
But, so like back then you had to be like, here's a single dad, but here's why.
Yep. But then the reason why, so vague and never mentioned ever again.
Hard.
Dad worked too hard. What?
That sounds like, why did you get arrested last night? I was being too nice.
I was too nice.
I was too nice to the staff at Hooters, and they arrested me for being too nice. And then like never mentioned again.
When they go into a job interview and they're like, what's your worst quality? And you're like... I worked too hard. Yeah. That's what they did with him.
With him and his entire relationship with his daughter, who, as far as I could see, never attended school.
I don't think that she ever had to attend school. I think football is, what did they say at the beginning of this movie that they say at every football movie? Football is a way of life. Yeah. In Alexandria, Virginia, football is a way of life. And so I think that means school, not a way of life.
Not a way of life. And it wasn't, just cutting to the end, I was waiting to see in the montage at the end, like that she went on to be the first assistant coach at and she just like, no, I went into to hand goods. I started knitting things on Etsy, threw away the first 30 years of my life. Yep. Now I make covers for butter dishes.
Exactly.
It was a very, she went to camp with them.
Yeah.
She went to an away college and did what all day?
Who's to say?
I thought that they were going to have a scene where they were like, she was going to like suggest a play that was going to work or something, but she just really kind of like nagged you could be run faster. It's like, what?
And using a whole bunch of technical language. Like, it really was a one-note joke that they just hit over and over and over. It didn't come full circle with her suggesting a play. It didn't come full circle with her saying, like, well, Mom would have wanted you to do this or something. She just, it's just for comedic relief, I guess, to be like, that's so funny that this annoying as fuck little kid is... telling these grown-ups what to do.
Startlingly annoying.
Yeah.
It was
shocking how annoying she was, especially compared to the other little girl who couldn't have been more charming and lovely.
Right.
I'm like, that's how that's how kids should be. Seen and not heard.
Yeah, just on the floor playing with Barbies.
Accessorizing.
There was a scene where she was like,
she's accessorizing.
She's accessorizing. Yes, very good call. Good catch. She's accessorizing with the Barbies on the floor. And I even think that going back and playing fake director or writer in this movie, she could have taken the Barbies and put them in like a football formation or something to show that this carried over.
Totally.
But she was just like, I don't want to do that. And then she just looked back at the game film, which should have been, they should have been looking at on an Atari 1800.
Yeah.
It was in black and white. I mean, it was old school.
Yeah.
And she just looks and she goes, man, we suck. And it's like, what?
And then a brick comes through the window.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about the brick situation now.
We can't. I mean, look, let's just get. Well, I don't know exactly what you, as a whole, like, feel about this movie. Like, what was your overall impression? And then we can kind of get into more of the specifics.
My overall impression was you really hit it on the head when you started talking about there were a lot of storylines that had a nice little bow. Just like dad worked too hard. I mean, dad worked too hard. Mom left. There's your bow. And you're like, but wait. And they're like, shut up. We gave you the bow. And then you move on. And you're like, I have a question. They're like, shut your mouth.
They said, ain't no mouth.
You hit it on the head.
Just when you start to wonder, this isn't adding up, they start singing some more soul music.
There was, I did not remember how much singing there was in this movie, to the point that it made me want to ask you today, could this be remade as a Broadway musical?
I hope it one day is. I think it absolutely could, and I think it should.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Did the singing start to annoy the piss out of you? Because it did to me. The black defensive lineman, Blue, I think his name was, the first two songs, all right, dog.
Sure.
Like song, because anything that would happen, it would just be like, we got a big game coming up. We got a big game. I'm like, bro, my mom has cancer. Your mama. Like, hey.
It was the go-to way to break the tension for anything. They'd be like, man, someone threw a brick through our coach's window. Amazing.
I mean, she is not lying. Every scene.
I kind of loved
it. They threw a brick through your window. Brick. House. So it was so much singing. My girl was like, there's a lot of singing. I am not here to prove. I'm just saying that was what really hit me was the singing. The process of them coming together as a team initially, I just kept being struck by the fact that, first of all, this happened in 1971, so 6 years before I was born. Like the fact that like the military with M16s had to be like, this kid can go to algebra.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane, and it just kind of shows you, and it's always been not a conspiracy theory of mine, but a theory of mine is like, I think Americans are not deprived totally of our history, but like when things took place and how things overlapped.
Yeah.
Like there's that thing that like Ruby Bridges, who needed to be escorted by the military police into school. She's the exact same age as like my mom's husband.
That's so wild.
But when you look at the pictures, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, was there screaming at her.
Yeah.
But you look at those pictures and you're like, that must have been like 17, 14.
Yeah.
It was not that long ago.
I know.
And so like, it's hard with these period pieces like this to really grasp like how recent it was, because thank God it does seem crazy. It wouldn't be like, oh, my kids are starting school, so we got to put on our Kevlar. Like that was like a real conversation not that long ago, almost within my lifetime. But my mom was like a person, like kicking it.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what struck me. And one thing that really hit me before I get into my real synopsis was just like, there's the big kerfuffle, as the busing starts.
Oh yeah.
And some of the signs, I saw a sign that said "Moms Against Busing," and I was like, "Damn, y'all! What did black people do? The moms got together.
Moms against
Moms
busing.
against. What are you down with? I'm down with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and busing.
And busing. Not drunk busing.
Yeah,
Busing.
You can be sober, just don't have any black people in that bus. So yeah, that, and then like they kind of had to show the team going from a period of not accepting each other at all to then forced to being sit next to each other and realize that we're all people, we're all one, and the bond. There, that's it. There it is. And there it is. And just the and then it kind of all being reset again when they come back from Camp Gettysburg, from the Gettysburg College.
Oh yeah.
Which I know that when movies are made and a college is portrayed, you want to portray them in the best light.
Yeah.
So that a 12-year-old looking goes, I want to go to USC when I'm that. It looks hot cheerleaders. The one real scene we see of Gettysburg College is when he runs them on a death march in the middle of the night to a cemetery that's filled with fog and talks about dead young men with the blood burgling out of them. I was like, good historical note, not great for Gettysburg College. You want to come here?
No.
It was very, just like I really, I felt for Gettysburg College in that sense. And then the team
it's
comes
funny
back.
that we didn't hear from Gettysburg College about that. Like we heard from Duke when that guy in White Lotus was wearing a Duke shirt when he was like contemplating killing himself.
Right.
But we didn't hear from Gettysburg College when they said, look at this place.
Yeah.
All that we have to show you is this really sad cemetery and talking about the brutality of war. And then they're all like, you know what? I think that maybe we have more in common than we thought.
We all don't want to be dead in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
Okay.
We never want to come back here again.
So they get back to town and they get right back into the racial strife, which weirdly ends up kind of bonding them together.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the point of boot camp, which is really what what they went through at the college. The point of boot camp, especially for people that want to be Navy SEALs and Marines, is they want you to hate your sergeant so much and be so used to so much trauma that when you get in the battlefield, you just react.
Exactly.
And you don't think about it. And I mean, in that case, Coach Boone was probably a good appetizer for what they were walking into.
Yeah, true.
So, they get into the season and there were some, just not to nerd out on football, which I could, but there were just, I get that the halftime scenes are very important to push the story along because there has to be a moment where, there's a player that hasn't bought in and another player pulls them aside and they have, a discussion and then they go out in second half and they've now bonded more. But what ended up happening for the football nerd in me is they would have this whole like, Molly, you got to play better. All right. We worked really hard. I love you like a sister. You have to play better. And you're like, all right, Al, I will. And then you go out and you're like, you guys didn't discuss any strategy at all.
No strategy. It's just like, well, then all of a sudden I decided maybe I will try.
Yeah. And then they just go out. And because they wasted halftime falling back in love together, Denzel's like giving play calls I'm like, you had a whole halftime. He's like, you're going to guard 23. I'm like, you're doing this now?
They're about to run out there and then they're like, oh yeah, what should I
do? Yeah. They were putting players out there that had never played defense. It was a very, if I could go back and look at one thing, I wanted to know, were the games as close as they said they were in the movie, or were they blowouts?
They were all blowouts.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that.
They were all blowouts. Of course, that's not interesting to watch if it's a movie, so I understand, they got to do a little Hollywood magic, but I did think it was pretty clear. As a person who doesn't know anything really about football myself, even I could tell, like, this was not made by sports people.
No.
This was made by people who are good at writing stories about high school communities and maybe friends and maybe
friend drama.
Yeah, friend drama, like some sweet stuff tied up in bows, but there's not a whole lot of sport knowledge executed in this movie.
Well, you can tell that because when they're staying closer to at least the sports the true sports script is they would have spent time building up the end of the season opponent.
Right.
They would be like, our last game against Liberty High, and they would show like, TC Williams wins, Liberty High wins, to build that drama to that meeting. But like their last game, they just played a team and their coach was like just wearing a blue vest. Now I wanted to talk about, because we did learn some things about certain teams.
Right.
There was one team that had a very racist coach.
Yeah.
And he went on the TV giving an interview, and on television, he said that he was gonna knock the chocolate out of the TC Williams players.
Yeah.
And as a black man that takes racism very seriously, I will say this: the one Achilles heel to racism is when you make it sound delicious. I was like, what did you just say? I was telling my boy one day, I was like, everybody has racial slurs. People have racial slurs against black people, but the Italian racial slurs, they sound like really
so
delicious. They're
yummy.
like bunch of caramel fusillis in here. And you're like, what'd you call me?
Bunch of meatball sandwiches up in here.
Great. It's very weird.
Yeah.
So, but then that was it. They just got killed. There was never, I don't know if that was part of the narrative, but I just, with movies like this, the camera wants us to focus on them starting to win and them winning over the townspeople.
Right.
But I had to think that at some point, and we haven't really gotten to this, but we'll get back, that's townspeople that were worried about their all-white football team being integrated takes the field dancing with a white quarterback that is heavily seen to be gay.
Yeah.
And that must, because I'm sure people were like, calm down, they're just boys playing football.
Yeah.
But that's a lot for a racist guy in 1971 to take in the course of a few days. You got to ease the old men into it.
Look, they were doing the electric slide at like the second game.
What are they going to be doing? Dancing at midfield? Yeah, they are.
And they're not just dancing. They're doing the electric
choreographed
slide.
dancing. I mean, it was, and I do want to talk to you. What were your thoughts on the introduction of the player Sunshine, who got dropped off by his military dad from California? And I'm putting California in quotes because boy, did this movie use California with some quotes.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts initially?
Okay, so my thought when I first saw this movie when I was a little kid, I was like, oh, it's the gay one, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so that guy is gay. Watching it this time, I was like, oh, actually, the whole thing is that, like, it's supposed to not matter.
Can you
like,
hold that thought for 1 second? Can we pause?
Yeah.
This isn't live, is it?
Oh, no, this isn't live.
Okay.
Yeah, you're totally fine.
Des, what's up? Oh, that's okay. Just tell them they don't even have to lock the door. Whenever they're done, they can just take off.
Plug Spider. Plug Spider.
Okay.
And I'm plugging Spider. First of all, I've already plugged Spider, and I'm gonna do it again. I'm on the phone. Keep this in.
We're keeping this in
right now. I'm at the podcast studio. That was Jacob. I'm with Molly, and I'm on camera right now. This is No, it's fine. This is my friend Destiny. She's calling to let me know that the Spider moving people have done an outstanding job. This is not a joke, and we appreciate them.
And thank you. Shout out, Spider.
Yeah. So, all right, Des, I'll call you back. Okay. All right, thanks. Oh, all right, bye.
And you've been here we've only been recording for 30 minutes, and they worked so swiftly.
It's
incredible.
They saved my life.
Yeah.
They were my sunshine.
They were your sunshine.
So talk to me. I need to know your thoughts about Sunshine.
Okay, Sunshine. So he comes in with his long hair, and they call him Fruitcake. He kisses Gary on the mouth, which I thought was such a funny troll now. Like, I thought when I first saw it, I was
you
like,
need to set for our viewers how he kissed Gary. Because it was out of nowhere in the locker room. And I was like, did we just witness a sexual assault?
Yeah, it does actually kind of read that way a little bit. When I watched it when I was younger, I thought that he had like a crush on him and that he literally like was just like, I want to kiss this guy because I think he's hot. What he was actually doing was like, you know, essentially bullying him, putting him in his place the way that these boys do.
Wow, that's like, a great point. That is bullying. You don't look at it from that side. It's like, because it was like, I do Tai Chi, which does not work.
No.
I've seen a lot of MMA fights.
Yeah.
And when people are introduced, they'll be like, here's Molly Smith. She has been trained. She's a black belt in karate, jiu-jitsu, and she's a kickboxer. You never see Tai Chi. You never see an old man channeling the ocean waves.
Oh,
that will get you destroyed. And it's like, oh, you two thugs want to take my wife's purse? It's like, what is that?
Yeah,
So,
I don't think that that's exactly what helped
that
him
is
on the
bullying,
field.
though.
But yeah, I thought that he was trying to like, ironically, he was like puffing up his own masculinity to be like, all right, I'm proving myself. I'm gonna troll on this guy who's in charge and like show him who's boss, which, yeah, okay, fucked up power dynamic. But I read it really differently this time, and I really liked that they included it because I thought it, unfortunately, I did think it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, my girl gasped.
My,
She was like, what? Because you just don't see. That's the way, like, when you would watch things in the 80s and me and you were doing a rom-com and you're like, oh, what? I'm like, shut up, woman, and kiss me. And then I just kiss you. And like, that was like considered romance. Can you imagine grabbing the back of somebody's head? And
just planning on it.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Like, and the guy the real life guy, he said that did not happen.
Yeah, no shit.
He's like, people ask me about that all the time, and no, I did not kiss him in the locker room.
First of all, we started talking about bows.
Yeah.
They put a nice little bow on that one because when your team's starting all-state linebacker has a stranger walk into that locker room, doff his hat, and kiss him like the end of Indiana Jones. Usually you're going to lose some respect with you in the locker room or in prison.
Yeah.
Like, you can't let that happen.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, man, let's chill out. And I was like, here's the bow.
It.
And you're like, but I have a question. We bowed it.
Yeah.
And it was never discussed. It was never, the young Donald Faison, he brought it up one more time in the lunchroom.
Yeah, that's where I think, that's the point where it's like, we're supposed to not care. It's sort of, and I really liked that. I liked that he never said whether he was gay or not, because Donald Faison's character is like, okay, man, so like, are you? And he's like, I don't know, am I?
Yeah, it was very.
He was like, doesn't matter. He's like, well, it doesn't matter to me. He's like, well, if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter.
And then
and then that's it.
Just ends. And then you're like, but what was the conclusion of that conversation? Bow. Boop. That's it. Boop. Never mentioned again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was an interesting element.
Yeah.
I had a few things that I had written down because I always look for the movie. In whenever movie I look at, like, what it's the golden age for what, like it's the peak of what, and I would say a couple things. This is definitely the peak for the word hind parts. I have maybe heard that phrase once, and I went to college in the South. My family's from the South. He used the word hind parts so much that it's, I don't know about you, but I feel like the euphemisms that people use instead of cursing are they're way weirder and good. Like, yeah, hit him right in his prison pocket. You're like, what? You're like, oh my God. Just say, it's like the hind parts just really.
The PG of this movie really was shining in those moments where they're like, this is a bunch of crap.
And that was, the little girl used up the crap a couple times.
Yeah.
The hind parts, and the other thing I think this was the peak for was men wearing dress shirts and slacks at 9:47 at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
All times of the day. You are dressed like you are having a casual but serious business lunch.
Yeah. Totally.
It's so weird.
They were dressed to the nines, and it's interesting. This piece is almost like it's like 1970s nostalgia, but it's also a period piece about racism. So it's kind of interesting how they lean into the like, oh, look at the 1970s. They were so cool. Let's listen to let's listen to all of this like classic 70s rock and like, I don't know, the outfits and everything about the aesthetic is so 70s, and we're supposed to be like, ooh, yeah, like remember the 70s? I love that song.
Yeah.
But then it's also like, yeah, and that was only at the time that this came out. It's like that was only 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is about the first time that this team has integrated.
Yeah. And it was not going well.
And it was not going well.
I mean, it's very interesting. I have a weird relationship to movies like around this era, because I had this very strange experience that happened to me in college. I did 2 years at Brown, and I did my first 2 years at a small black school in Mississippi called Tougaloo. And when I was down at Tougaloo, they were filming A Time to Kill in Madison, Mississippi. My cousin Raina was auditioning to be the court reporter in that movie. So I used to play a lot of pickup basketball, and she was like, why don't you ride down here with me while I audition? So I was like, fine. So I'm playing basketball in the hood in the most rural part of Mississippi. She comes over to the court. She goes, they're auditioning young black dudes to be part of that group of kids that throws the Molotov cocktail on the Klansmen. And I got the part.
Shut up.
I never wanted to act. I never thought. I just went over there and they were like, act out seeing your friend. I think it was because I was so raw.
Oh my God.
That I got it. I was for 3 days. I was on set. Sandra Bullock. I was in craft services.
Way.
I didn't even know what craft services. I didn't know.
God.
I didn't know what a big deal it was.
A Star is Born.
I had no idea.
That is so
And listen
wild.
to the disappointing conclusion. There was There was my pre-algebra teacher, because I was at remedial in math.
For sure. I get it.
She found out that I got the part in the movie, and she called me and she said, she congratulated me, and she was like, if you miss one more day of class, you're going to have to do it again next year. And I was so short-sighted.
Oh my God.
I gave that roll up. So when you watch a Time to Kill, there's and I knew those guys too. Like we were on set together for hours.
Oh my God.
The black kid that throws the Molotov cocktail on the Klansman and he lights up. That was supposed to be me.
Supposed to be you.
Like that story's 1,000% true.
Shut up.
And it was so like I was so naive. I didn't even realize how big getting a movie was.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go in after show business for another 8 years probably.
Whoa.
So random.
So random.
Yeah. So anyway, so I have experience with like being on a movie set where there's racial strife.
Yeah.
Because everybody's chilling.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and action, you whore.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ. It's like, oh my God. It's so weird because it's like these people that were just standing in line with each other,
right?
Getting, really good food, lobster linguine or something, and talking about, I'm up for this other role on, some daytime show. Now, as soon as they cut, and it just like, so it's just this weird dynamic. So it's very hard for me to see those scenes with the moms against busing and everything. I'd be like, oh, those people were hanging out all week together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you feel it. I mean, it does. There's a tension there.
Yeah.
It's a tension. Like whenever you just see somebody in a Klan outfit, even when they're acting, it's a visceral response your body has.
I can't imagine.
It was so, and it's in Mississippi. It's hot. Oof. It's where that shit went down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elements. It's like we're acting, but it's like if there was domestic violence and then they made you go back to the house and reenact it, it's like,
holy shit.
It's very hard to disassociate. So yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And you went through all that and still didn't get to do the part.
I just want to go back and shake young Al and be like, here's what you do. You go up to your algebra teacher.
Your pre-algebra.
You brush past her. You go straight to the dry erase board, and the first letter you write is F. And then you let me know when you're done writing.
Yeah.
And then you go do a movie with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
And Charles Dutton. But it just shows you, like, I don't think my kids would have made that mistake. I was so naive. I was really a child at college.
Yeah.
Like people at 17 hadn't done anything.
Right.
And so like I didn't know like, oh, this would be cool and residuals. I had a line.
Right.
I would have been in SAG.
My God, I was just gonna say you could have been SAG.
I didn't know what the fuck SAG was.
Oh my God.
So crazy.
Damn,
but I
that is crazy.
I feel like if I pursue that, that's my sliding doors moment, and maybe I go after acting and not stand up. And so like, that's how I lie to myself so I can sleep at night.
100%, because we can't go there.
Right.
We can't go there. Well, that's actually not how you sleep at night. How you sleep at night is watching tornado videos, which we've already established.
Let me give you one more. White Plains, Illinois.
Oh my God.
1998. It's a calm day. Watson Elementary's just getting out, and it's been a beautiful day thus far. Little do they know. And it's just like so depressing.
I love a little do they know.
Oh, man.
Little do they know they're about to get their shit rocked. Yeah. Oh, my God.
So, it's I had a lot of fun rewatching this movie, but there were some things. Let me see if there's anything else that. Oh, do you want to talk about the brick through the window?
Oh yeah, let's.
And this was the golden age of calling somebody a sissy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of sissies in here.
Well, yeah, and you know that a coach who unfortunately 5 years later did get fired for alleged abuse of the players. I don't think he's calling them sissies.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. But I did
think he was yelling
very...
California a lot of times. It's such a
lot of California.
Okay, now I wanted to know if you wanted to. Obviously, Gary Bertier.
Yeah.
Very close to my heart. I have a close friend of mine, comedian Forrest Shaw, and we've known each other 25 years. And every 6 months, he'll just leave me a voicemail, and all he'll say is, "Cannot replace Gary Bertier." That's all it is. He just loves that line.
Wow.
He loves that player. We all love Gary Bertier.
Yeah, we do.
But we need to talk about his accident.
We need to talk about the accident.
What are your thoughts? Set the scene for
Okay.
why Gary ends up soloing it. Has there ever been a situation where the star linebacker leaves the pep rally by himself?
By himself? Come on. Because his girlfriend is still too racist to be with him, and his bestie needs to hang out with his girl.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's it.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, I mean, there is something to be said for like the person who might be the most popular, but is truly the loneliest.
Yeah.
You know, the person who's always surrounded by people, but never really connecting with people.
Which is probably how famous people feel.
Of
Because
course.
Justin Bieber can't meet anybody.
No, you can't just
you're on an island.
chit-chat.
You want to
Yeah.
go to the mall? Sure, we'll close it for you.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go to Disney World? We'll close it for you. They can't meet people.
Can't just go to Disney World and be Justin Bieber.
Right. There'll be a riot. Like people
Yeah.
will die.
Yeah. And in Alexandria, Virginia, football is a way of life. I don't know
Right.
if you know that. That is what they say in the very beginning of
Wait,
the
were
movie.
you the little girl in the movie? We find out that it was you.
Yeah.
But really quickly, side note, but just this made me think of it. I used to host like a kid show, a Guinness Book of World Record show that was on the BBC for years.
That's so fun.
And I had a co-host, this really cool Asian chick, and we did the show for 7 years.
Yeah.
And like year 2, we were sitting at the bar, just having like a casual conversation, talking about how we got in the business. And I was still drinking, obviously, at that point. And I was like, "Oh, what'd you do?" Because I remember she was like, "Oh, I have a house in London." I was like, "You have a house?"
Whoa.
You know, like
you're like, where
What?
did our paths diverge?
yeah, but I was like, maybe, you know, it was like maybe they call apartments houses over there, you know? And so I was
They're
like,
so quirky
yeah,
over
I was
there.
like, those Brits.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, what'd you do?" And she said she went to like a performing arts college, and her
Yeah.
first audition was when the guy from Blur was creating the Gorillas to
Shut
and
up.
she was like, "I was the chick in the Gorillas," and like
What?
I almost fell off my bar stool. I was just she was
is
such a cool, she like
wild.
was the coolest chick I'd ever met.
Of course she was.
She was in the Gorillas, never mentioned it. She
Wow.
was a professional storyteller, and she showed me pictures. She had like one of those Janet Jackson headsets and was telling stories to like thousands of tiny adorable Asian kids.
Oh my God.
And she taught child martial art fight sequences for movies. I was like, "Are you a real person?"
That's not
She was
real.
the best person. So anyway,
That's so
sorry,
cool.
side note. But yeah, some people do have these weird side notes where they're like, "Oh, I was the kid," and
Yeah.
you're like, "What? That's
What?
dope." Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
something. So
It's
all right, so
crazy.
let's talk about Gary Bertier
Okay,
and like
so he's the likelihood that this guy the most popular kid in school because football is a way of life in Alexandria, Virginia. He is like the celebrity of the town, right? And so he's driving through town. It's kind of like a parade, and he's waving at all the people, and he's getting all of this love and attention. And then he gets hit by a semi and is paralyzed. In real life, that guy actually did get in a car accident and get paralyzed, and he did die in another car accident 10 years later, which is fucking wild.
My girl and I rewound that because we were like, my girl goes, what? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And she was like, did you read that? I was like, no. I was like, wait, there was a second
car accident. So wild.
It was Final Destination. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Family curse? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But it is absolutely wild. So yeah, I read that Gary Bertier actually did get in a car accident. It was after the state championship.
But they had to do it
But they had to do it before so that he could be shouting in the hospital bed. And also, it's not a good end of the story when the last thing that happens is this guy gets paralyzed. You know,
they show that, and then they go, and then he died 10 years later in a similar accident. Yeah, you can't end the movie like that. You can't
end it like that. Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it before, and you got to give everyone a chance to step up, you know?
Yeah.
But sorry, that was maybe a little insensitive since he can't step anymore. But
I'm not gonna say that
No, yeah.
because maybe I'm picking a nit here.
Yeah.
But I had an issue with the accident itself.
Yeah.
Because it was extremely strange because he's being lauded by the townspeople that have formed a Soul Train line of love for him to go down honking, we love you, we love you.
And he's going about 2 miles an hour.
About 2.
Yeah.
He gets to the last guy, and the guy goes, Gary Bertier, we love you. And he points at the guy. His signature Gary Bertier points. I don't know if the foot that was on the accelerator was connected to his arm. But Molly, when he pointed to this man, inexplicably, he decided to floor it.
Yeah.
But continue to look at that guy.
Him. Yeah.
So the car just started accelerating in this weird way. And the accident happened, and it was like, you love Gary, but I was like, Gary, that is your fault, dog. Like,
I'm afraid it is.
Not only were you not looking through the intersection, you just sped up for no. It was the weirdest accident. And it kind of took me out of it. And what brought me back weirdly is like, you know, when they got one of the last bows we get, the second to last, because the last one I consider to be Emma. Yeah. And my girlfriend was like, what? It's like, you know, they got to make it that it's okay that he's paralyzed, and it's okay if you're in a wheelchair. Of course. That's your family. Who cares? But it's the fact that they got to tie a bow on it. So they go, are you upset that you're in a wheelchair? He goes, they got Olympics. Bow, and that's it.
It's
not, but then get some pictures because he went to the Olympics.
Because he actually did. Yeah, he's like an actual Olympian. He won the shot put.
Yeah, so show us that.
Show us that.
Yeah, so I don't know. That would have been a cool picture, and I think really inspiring for people that have, suffered injuries where they've lost the ability to, because since the year 2000, think about how many people saw that then went on to have something happen and be like, I'm going to be like Gary Bertier.
Totally.
Now we see those athletes a lot, but I don't think in the year 2000, I think people were just like, go get your wheelchair. That's it, bro. And he had the foresight to be like, nah, dog. Yeah. We doing this.
Totally. But then if they had done that, they wouldn't have had time to sing, hey, 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 goodbye at the funeral.
I need to know your thoughts. I'm going to sip.
I can imagine by that point you were probably a little fatigued by
just like,
the singing.
Please don't, not at a funeral.
You knew they were going to.
But is that the song? Because the sports nerd in me always thinks that na 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 is literally the word na 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 is kind of, it plays two roles because the home team chants that when the visiting team has no chance to win the game
Yeah.
anymore. And they start to, so it's kind of like a mocking chant as I've
Yeah.
always heard it. I've never heard
Yeah.
it in a very,
Never heard it as like, bye.
yeah. Like
It's more like goodbye.
yeah, overrated. It should have been
Yeah.
like, I don't think it was out yet, but maybe was End of the Road out in 2000?
Yeah, probably.
But not in 1971.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess it was 10 years later, so
10
81.
yeah, so that's
Right?
not, no,
Yeah.
that's not out.
Yeah.
But I just would think that there'd be a better homecoming song than that in terms of like somebody is going to the
Right.
next, they're transitioning into whatever
Yeah.
you think the next life is, if you think there is a next life. And that song fit as well as like We Will Rock You. It just, I didn't see it in there.
Yeah.
It didn't fit to me.
Yeah.
Can I ask you really quickly about Emma's handshake?
Oh, yeah.
Right
you can
before the
ask
game
me.
started.
You can ask me about Emma's handshake.
Because you know, when she breaks up with Gary Bertier, it really kind of initiates when Gary's on the sidewalk after being after they were basically thrown out of a bar for being. It is weird that like a gay man and two black guys were shocked that they were thrown out of a bar in Virginia. I was like, you guys probably shouldn't go in there.
I actually do have to say something about this,
Talk
but
to
let's
me.
Okay. Should we come back to it, or should I go?
Yeah, let me, because I'm going to ask you this
okay,
question.
yeah.
So they're on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And Emma, her homegirl, and two dudes, there's an unseen dude in that passenger seat, pull up like, yo, we're going to the point or with a Kissing Rock or wherever they're going.
Yeah.
And I felt like that car represented whiteness and racism. And
Yeah.
he had to make the decision of living a life of privilege in a car or walking the sidewalk with his rainbow coalition of friends.
With the Gay Straight Alliance.
That was really, it was a real dichotomy of like standing versus them being in the car.
Yeah.
And you know, he makes a decision that he makes. Emma previously snubbed Wood Harris's character Julius on a handshake, and so she decides to give him that handshake seconds before he takes the field for the championship game.
Somehow she gets on the field.
How did she get down there?
We don't know.
Why did she think that was the moment?
She could.
The movie's been leading up to this.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it'd be like if like you were about to do a karate tournament and I walked up to you right before the referee said fight, and I was like, hey, I think I broke your remote. So it's like not the time to discuss. Like, I don't care about that handshake snub.
I don't care. I don't give a shit about her. I don't care about her.
Yeah.
I don't care that she has had this reckoning and decided that she's not racist anymore. I don't care about her. I don't know her. We don't know her. We don't care.
Right. We don't care.
No.
Because every opportunity she had to do something shitty, she took it.
She did.
Snubbed him.
Yeah.
Left her boyfriend, clearly going to bang the other guy.
Obviously,
What are they going to
yeah.
have, a threesome with the one girl? No.
Right.
That is the silent
Yeah.
friend, like, yo, I got
Yeah.
a girl for you. Her man's tripping.
Yeah.
You can get in there.
Totally.
And that's why that guy was in the front. So even if he was going to go, what was up with that? Were they going to all
Yeah.
posse up? Come on,
They
dog.
knew that he wasn't going to
Yeah,
go.
I'm not down with Team Emma in any way.
And she said something that was so odd to me. She said that
Was it odder than the phrase, you're overcooking my grits? Which is what Boone said earlier.
that was wild. But she said something, God, I wish that I had written it down, but it was basically like we're just growing in the wrong directions or something
Yeah.
like that. And it was like, what are
She
you
said something like,
talking
I'm not
about?
growing as fast as you are.
Yeah.
And it was just
It was like, I don't know that that's really the thing to say right now. But I do want to go back to that scene where Sunshine and the other three guys go into the restaurant and then they're turned away. I actually really liked that part because I felt like Sunshine was the one that was like, no, guys, come on. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Racism is over. I'm with you. It'll be fine. And then, of course, they come back out because they've been kicked out. And the other three guys are like, look, we told you. Because he's like, I didn't know. And they said, you didn't want to know. And I was
Wow.
like, there it is. There it is. He didn't want to believe that he was still getting this privilege over them. He didn't want to believe that racism still existed in this town, despite the fact that they're doing really well at football.
Right.
And I was really, I mean, I do think it's weird that they still, I mean, despite the fact that they were like, yeah, this is not going to work out well, they're like, well, we'll just go in and try anyway. I'm like, I don't think those guys would have done that.
Absolutely not.
But I liked how they called him out after. And it was sort of this moment of like, oh yeah, we're not at camp anymore.
Right.
We're not in our little isolated world anymore. Like, this is real life. And I think maybe, I'm guessing probably one of them even said exactly that, you know, because they don't really leave a whole lot of room for interpretation in this movie. They probably did say, we're not at camp anymore. Or
Right.
something like that.
Like literally, we're not
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. And it does, I love situations like that, in that there's not these polar opposites where California was trying to embarrass him because he's a bad person.
Right.
And the black guys in that situation were just these perfect people. It was life.
Yeah.
It was a person that, you know, it was assumed to be gay, but obviously that, besides having long hair, he really didn't stand out that much from anybody
Right.
else in the town. So he was of a disadvantaged group of people, but hoping and wishing that racism or sexism or homophobia or xenophobia doesn't exist is a good thing. And I think it's very plausible, and I'm sure we are all guilty of it, that we try and forget about it because it sucks so bad. And
Yeah.
you want to just be like, you know, hey, I just, you know, it'll be fine. Even though you know it probably won't. There's a
Right.
part of you that just like, just tonight, can you guys not
Yeah.
suck and just let it play? And it's like, no. And so
Yeah.
I understand the position of just like, because the mind always wants to kind of relax itself. It doesn't want to think that it's under threat. So you do convince yourself racism isn't that bad.
Yeah.
I can speak from personal experience with the Me Too movement. That hit right when, you know, we were at the height of our talk show. And really we saw the beginning, middle, and kind of like the teetering out of it in terms of it being at the forefront of public conversation. And when it first came about, I was like, of course, there's sexism. You know, we've seen cases of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, everybody's had experiences. And then like
Right.
every woman that I know, love, knew slightly, had these stories that never made the news. And they just be like, oh yeah, my manager at you know, chain restaurant here, yeah, he used to make us all he used to guess what color underwear we were
Right,
wearing.
yeah.
And it's just like it would, and you're just
Yeah.
like
You're like, wait, this is
as
happening?
a person that knew that it was happening,
Yeah.
didn't know that it was on this scale and that it touched
Yeah.
everybody, and the things that people would say out loud. And I was just like
Yeah.
shocked, you know,
Totally.
because if you don't live it, you're like, I know it's bad, but I didn't know it was like these
that.
dudes are, because if you don't live that, if you don't feel that way, you assume you're not that different from other people. But
Yeah.
apparently, yeah, it was something else. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
a really great underrated scene.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, he had good intentions, but he still put his friends in danger.
Absolutely, he did.
You know?
Because they could easily block the door and be like, "Hey, y'all ain't going nowhere."
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so.
So, so I liked that they did that, even though it was kind of like that wouldn't happen. Still illustrated something that I thought was important. So, okay, what do you think about the whole like he's not getting into the Hall of Fame thing and like the whole Hall of Fame debacle? Like, how do you feel like that fit into the movie? Do you feel like they did it well, or do you feel like it was just maybe a little far-fetched?
I felt like it seemed like it was very flippant because
Yeah.
those same people were just like, just give me a second, we're going to get this black guy out of here. They tried to cheat with the refs.
Right.
They tried to, you know, tank him every single way. And I think they were trying to hammer home the idea that if you truly believe in a principle, it may result in you giving up the one thing you care about most.
Yeah.
And I did not look up. Do you know if he had to have gotten in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, probably.
I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
But I'm like, even with the whole Hall of Fame, was it worth losing your wife?
Right.
It all comes back to daddy worked
Right.
too hard.
Daddy worked too hard.
If you lost your wife, became a single parent,
With an annoying as fuck, little kid.
Yes, and it all comes down to a bunch of weathered old white guys deciding on whether you're going to get in this Hall of Fame that nobody ever talks about. No one's ever been like, oh, Jacob from Dude IDK, where are you this weekend? I was at the West Virginia High School Hall of Fame. Like, no one has ever cared.
No one's talking about that.
And I'm not trying to, like, I know it was a big deal to him, but, you know, his character was very strange because he was a guy that loved football.
Yeah.
I feel like he fairly unfair. I'm not about to say nothing was fair in 1960.
Of course.
So he loses his job due to no fault of his own. He then makes a decision to be an assistant coach under Coach Boone. And he's shown as this kind of figure that's willing to acquiesce. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't really get his motivation. I don't know if he was just trying to be a good guy. I didn't really. He just seemed like he spoke in like platitudes. Well, I'm behind you, coach. It's like, what is behind this person that like is so down with helping this black guy? I was like, maybe if you showed your wife some love, like seriously, like it just seemed like maybe he was just obsessed with football, but he was willing to walk away from being a coach totally.
Right.
So I didn't really get his motivation for being so malleable about this one thing that he loves that cost him the love of his life.
Yeah. But maybe he didn't really like her that much.
Maybe.
Maybe it was an excuse to get away from her. Maybe he just didn't really like her that much, and he's like, "Oh, I've got to work again."
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, just to go back to that sad shed. Can you imagine how hot it was in Virginia?
Oh,
you know,
my
there was no
God.
AC for another 10, 12 years.
Horrible.
Yeah, just like Dad's in his shed again.
Yeah,
all right,
there he is.
Yeah,
just
so
melting.
I just thought he was Coach Joe's character. Just, I don't think that you could look at that and not like him. But I don't think that you could watch that movie and love him because they don't show you enough of him.
Yeah, because all he is football.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, he is willing to take an assistant coach position. But it's like, what were his other options? He could go to whatever, like some other school in some other community.
He's going to take the year off,
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I think that he loved football too much to not coach, even if it was as an assistant coach, or at least that's what we're meant to believe.
Yeah, I guess so. And I do like that he suggested they were at camp. Mm-hmm. Two very strange things happened. They were sitting down to eat for the first time. Denzel Washington, Coach Boone, does maybe the weirdest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
He puts a singular grape on the spoon.
Yeah, he does.
And eats it.
That's I'm sorry, serial killer behavior.
I could not insane. Stop. It took me out of the movie.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
I was like, where was that grape?
Where did it come from? Why is it on a spoon?
A spoon. And he left it there to deliver a line. And basically the line was like, again, sports nerd, check out if you want to. But he goes, hey, we want to make the guys engaged. So maybe we start talking about some trick plays.
Right.
At the beginning of camp, you guys are just getting in shape.
Yeah.
You guys are barely glancing at the playbook. You're just trying to bond. You're trying to just kind of get an idea of what kind of offense you guys are going to run.
Right.
The idea of throwing in a trick play would be like, hey, we just got our podcast set up. Molly doesn't really know what she's doing. I don't really know where these chords go. We're going to try and do a live stream. It's just like you are going way too far.
You got to slow it down.
You're way too trick plays.
Trick play.
The players are yelling racial slurs at each other.
You're literally making them interview each other to humanize them.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah.
All right. Molly's mom's name is, all right, Jesus, don't say my mom if you're going to mention her with that tone.
Yeah, seriously.
Jesus.
Oh, the your mama jokes. Those were great. I'm sorry. I do love those. That was pretty funny.
Do you think that was the highlight of the movie for the big guy? What was his name? Kyle?
Oh, his name is it starts with an
I have
F. It's it's Louis. Louis.
Where else do we know him from?
He's in a few other things. He's been in some TV shows and in some movies. And he's also married to somebody famous, Juliette Lewis's sister.
Really?
And a Scientologist. Anyway, just some facts about that guy. But yeah, I felt like that was probably the highlight for him. I did I did think that it was nice that nobody made fun of him for being fat.
Great point.
That was pretty cool that we just had a fat guy who fits some of the tropes, but he wasn't the butt of every joke. He was the new kid in town, and it was kind of, he was sweet and naive, not that bright, but wasn't the butt of every joke. Didn't have to overcome his, fatness to become a good player or something like that. Like, he was just good at football.
Yeah. And I think you hit it right on the head. His motivation to play was pure. I just want to hit people because I'm not good at school. Ends up having a very heartfelt scene over a C- average. No shade, but it was a beautiful thing. Yeah. He got into college and it seems like he had a great life.
Yeah, I think he had a good life.
Shout out. Yeah. Shout out to Coach Boone saying, you bring me your test scores every week and we'll work on it. It's like, well, by the time I've taken the test, I've already gotten the F, Coach.
Right.
I think we need to get ahead of this.
You're going to look at them with me and tell me I'm a sissy, but maybe that'll motivate me.
Here's another F, Molly. Maybe we can meet on Mondays.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So, yeah.
Okay, one final thing that I feel like I wanted to address is, do you think that they maybe had to lean too much into Coach Boone being like the model minority? Like, the first thing we learn about him is that he's like, I don't miss an appointment. And he's like telling the kids that they need to like wear their suits and look nice and presentable. And he's very, the man means business. And I couldn't decide if it was like, they're just showing a man who is really type A and high strung, like the real life person. Or was it like they needed to make sure that they portrayed this black guy as model minority and not as, I don't know, a guy who's late to appointments?
Right. No, definitely. I mean, I think it can be both things at once. Mm-hmm. And I really thought that his character, Coach Boone, paralleled Morgan Freeman's character. We talked about it earlier in Lean on Me, where the black men of that era were raised, a lot of them were raised by parents that were like, to be a black man in society, because there's so many things working against you, you have to be perfect. And I think that ended up being beneficial because they knew when they were going up for any job, any position, they were already at a disadvantage.
Right.
And so that worked for them professionally. Mm-hmm. The problem is, and we saw this as well in Lean on Me, is socially and interpersonally, it's horrible. Yeah. Because people are like, hey, welcome to my high school, and you go to extend your hand. I'm like, look in your hand, like, why aren't you in third period? And you're like, I just came to say hi and welcome. Because they can't switch from that mode. Yeah. Because that mode is the only way that they can get to where they're going. So I wonder if that probably, if you ask people that were raised by men of that generation, guys that were in their 30s and 40s in the early 80s, late 70s, that were trying to become professionals in a white world that wasn't going to accept them really for another 10, 15, 20 years, how that resonated with their families. Because I have a lot of friends, they were just like, my dad was a great provider and a good guy, but you couldn't relax because, if you're sitting on the couch, sit up. Yeah. You're like, Jesus Christ, it's Saturday morning. I know. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, holy shit, dad sucks. Yeah. But it's just like, dad has to be in that mode because there's no other mode that doesn't land him on a chain gang or in the military. So I think that was a great question. I think that's why those personality types ended up being the first black insert here. Yeah. A fighter pilot, principal, all these things, head coach. Yeah. You had to be a hard ass. You can't be, I've always said, like, true equality is when you can just be average and be random.
Totally. When your life just matters because you are alive.
Yeah, and you can suck. That would be great. If like when there's like a black head coach in the NBA and he stinks, I'm like, that's equality. They hired an underqualified person and they sucked. He didn't have to be Jackie Robinson, who was like, I'm going to go up to hit a baseball. They say it's the hardest thing to do in the world. And 10,000 racial slurs and death threats. They said Hank Aaron, who broke Babe Ruth's home run record, the FBI said he got the most recorded death threats of anybody that's ever lived. Think about that. And you're trying to hit a baseball.
And yeah, you're trying to focus on anything.
And so it's just like, you have to be that level of human being. And I just want to see a world where a lot of average ass black people get fired for showing up late 4 days in a row.
Totally.
That's
just
real equality
shit.
when you can just be a person.
Yeah.
You can be the best or the worst or somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
And we can all just kind of figure our path in this life.
That's why I don't care that much that Howard Boone ended up getting fired 5 years later. You know, it's like it does kind of sour the movie for me a little. You know, it kind of makes the, you know, all the sissies and all of that kind of, it paints it in a different light. But honestly, it doesn't make me say like we need to cancel Howard Boone. You know, like I'm not like, you know, it's like he was probably doing the same shit that every other football coach in the 1970s was doing, and football coaches even now.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, yeah, they're all talking shit to their teenage players.
Even when I played high school basketball in the 90s, my coach, and it's funny because people don't find this as funny as me, he was just like a jerk.
Yeah.
And he would just yell things at practice that would like just get you. I remember one time we were running wind sprints and he stopped the team from running and he goes, hold on. Jackson, are you out here just to show us that all black men aren't fast? so mean. That's and so funny and like, oh my God, like you could not say that, but that was a zinger. That stayed with me 20, 30. I mean, that was so funny. And it's like, you can't say that anymore, but I was like, damn. But like those men existed and they don't anymore. Those guys have all been fired from whatever position.
Totally.
But I think you're right. I think that's a personality type that has a short shelf life. Yeah. But it's like having like a flamethrower. If you need to get rid of a forest to get somewhere, okay, it's great. But like the small things, it doesn't work on well. And that's kind of like that personality is only good for space and time, and then it's 5 years got to go.
It works for when your community is at a total crossroads and you need to bring this team together and you need to like make sure that everyone is really falling in line so that you can accomplish this goal. But then it's like, okay, so then they integrated the team. Every game was a blowout. They're doing great. And it's like, maybe once the dust settles, then they're like, well, you got to stop calling us Californians now. Now you can't keep doing that. It's not really there's not really as much of a purpose for it.
And I don't know if there's a switch for that. I don't think there's a cool ass Coach Boone. It's like, take your shoes off, put them on my coffee table, it's fine. I don't know if he ever chills out. And I think that a lot of guys from that era, if you talk to the kids that they raised, were like, my dad was a great man and a good man and a man of his convictions. But I wish I could have seen him laugh more. Right. You know, and they never got a chance to because their life was warfare. Right. Everywhere. You went to the store and just like, yeah, we don't have any soda. I can see it over your shoulder. Yeah. We're out. Imagine that's every day of your life. Day. You know, like, it's very hard to take your armor off and just be like, hey, let's kick it today. Right. You know, so I get where that personality type comes from, and I get why that personality type makes you say, I want to get 50 miles away from this person right now.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Well, listen, what else do we need to talk about? Is there anything else that we didn't address?
I think that is it. Is there one more thing? Because if I leave anything on here, I'll be like, we have no water. We talked about that. Hind parts. Talked about that.
I will say that that the screenwriter, Gregory Allen Howard, is the first African-American screenwriter in Hollywood history to write a script for a $100 million generating motion picture drama, and the only African-American screenwriter in film history to write a spec script that garnered $100 million in revenue.
Wow. Yeah. $100 million. I mean, this movie really hit, and I mean, it I feel like for when it was made, it held up incredibly well. And I know people, you can pick it apart now. It's like,
Yeah.
It was 2000. Go back and watch reality TV. Hugh Hefner had a show where he was kissing 19-year-olds in the mouth.
That's true.
On syndicated television. Everybody was like, cool.
Yeah.
So, like, we were not all the way there yet. So, shout out. I think we have hit everything. I have the uniforms ill-fitting.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true.
And let's see, there was one more thing that I had. Okay, no, I think that's it. We talked about everything.
Wow. Okay, actually, I will say one more thing that actually really brought a smile to my face is that, so at the time it got like mixed but generally positive-ish reviews, but then over time it's become like more and more appreciated. But when it came out, Roger Ebert in his review basically was like, it's not radical enough. He was like, let's see what he said. He said, still, the story sweeps certain obvious questions under the rug. One, we see that the whites don't want to play with the blacks and are afraid of losing their starting positions. But what about the black students? Weren't they in a black high school last year? Aren't they losing their team too? Aren't some of them going to be replaced by white starters? The movie shows the whites
They were like, let's be real.
Yeah, come on. The movie shows the whites as resentful and possessive, but assumes that the black players are grateful for the chance to leave their old school and integrate into the other team. And then it says whether the Titans win or lose has nothing to do with the season they have played and what they were trying to do, but it has everything to do with the movie's sleight of hand, which is we cheer the closing touchdown as if it's a victory over racism. He was basically like, they didn't solve racism.
Right. So.
But they made it look like it's that easy to score a touchdown and racism is gone.
Right.
And I thought that was like, I was like, wow, that's kind of delightful that in the year 2000 that Roger Ebert was like, nope.
I mean, he's totally right.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where there's a part of all of us, I think, inside where we just want to feel like, at least for a moment, because we all have the struggles of the world, that like for one night it was all right. And it probably wasn't. There were probably half the people in those stands like, I ain't cheering for that team.
Totally.
But they didn't put the camera on them. And in a weird way, it's okay, because there are always going to be people that suck.
Exactly.
And every once in a while, even if it's not true, you just want to think the good guys won. And that's where Based on a True Story comes in. They're like, close enough.
Exactly.
Don't look it up if you don't want to know.
If you don't want to know, don't look it up. It's close enough. Everything's tied up in a bow. Stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just sit down and enjoy a movie. That's what I think.
Was California gay? There's your bow.
Here's your bow.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Was this a real story? We already put the bow on it. And it kind of
Based
makes
on.
you feel, it's over.
Yeah.
No more questions for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Well, I am so glad that we did this. Tell the people what you've got going on. What's going on in your world? Where do you want people to find you?
Oh, just find me on Instagram at AlJacksonIG. Lots of fun things coming up kind of related to this, Studio Dude IDK. Obviously, you can check us here every Thursday doing Daytime Talk After Dark. I do that with my old Daily Blast Live host.
Tuesday.
Did I say Tuesday? What day did I say?
Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Every Tuesday. And starting next week, fingers crossed, my co-host Tory and I will be doing a morning show for at least 3 days a week.
Hell yeah.
We don't think we're going to be here on the premises because we're not going to wake them up 3 days a week.
Sure.
But we're going to be doing, and it's going to be through Dude IDK. So
Awesome.
Check that out.
Cool. Right
Yeah.
on. Well, Al, always a pleasure to have you.
I can't wait to come back. I love talking movies.
Oh my God, it's the best. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching or listening. Be sure to subscribe on social media at Did That Age Well on Instagram and at Did That Age Well Pod on TikTok. And please write a review. People haven't written reviews in a long time, and I know that you like it because you come up to me in real life and tell me that you like the podcast. So write a review. Thanks. Okay, bye.